when you're doing something technical that has big downsides, right? For different reasons, software engineers, like you're going to crash an app, and tax returns, you're going to make a mistake and they're going to get a letter from the IRS. But both of those things are very bad. So high compliance or high risk environment, AI is really good. Like it's maybe 95, 97, 98, maybe 99 on certain things percent accurate, or you can think of scores at that level versus like kind of a human test, but it's not 100. And so in those environments, like just with software engineers, they're using like a co-pilot basically, right? Like everyone now is using Cursor or Windsurf to write code. And I think the same thing is going to happen in the tax world. But here's the thing, like the software engineer is still there and they are driving this thing because the AI, if it's 95% accurate, you can still crash the app. And so it may take, honestly, the rest of our lifetime for AI to get better than an accountant who's taking their time with the proper controls in place. Like maybe not every accountant. It'll be better than a lot of accountants actually very quickly. But if you're double checking and doing good work and you know that insight that you're talking about when you're talking with someone, they say, I got married, even on like their organizer, they say, I got married in January, and you know that they filled that out in February. An AI system might just change the filing status, but a human might be like, well, which January? You know what I mean? It's like, hold on, like human context is going to be relevant for a really long time. I think I'm supposed to say welcome to Modern Tax Pros, by the way, Adam. So just for the record. Well, welcome to Modern Tax Pros. Dave Haase here, founder of Juno. And I'm here with Adam Manning, who's from Nomadica Solutions out of Georgia, right, Adam?
That's right.
Give me a little background on you and the firm.
So, my firm, we've been open about probably close to 2.5 years. And hey, I started this company just to help out a friend and file a couple of tax returns. And like that's all it's been for 2 years until tax season of 25 for year filing 24. And, I was working in the corporate world. I was a controller for a dealership that sold heavy equipment. And, I left that company and I had enough tax business to keep me busy for a while. So I didn't have to jump right into getting another job. And then it really just kind of took off, almost without my approval even. So, here we are. Nomadica Solutions has increased significantly in just the past 6 to 9 months. So here we are.
That's great. And tell me a little bit about like the client type and services you provide. Like kind of, I actually know some of this from your site, but just for
Sure.
for the podcast, tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Sure. So it's been hard to really nail down what we do because we've just kind of we get a call, somebody says, hey, can you help with this? And that's been it. But essentially we offer bookkeeping tasks and then tax prep, tax advisory, tax strategy, those type of things. But we have recently gotten into the fractional CFO world. Because of my prior experience working with a couple of different companies, it kind of gives me that skill set to be able to offer that. So essentially, we're here to provide any accounting or tax services that a company may need. Now, in terms of client base, we really specialize and focus on the self-employed, the freelancer, contractors, subcontractors, things of that nature. So basically the people that are jumping out on their own, starting their own gig, the same that Nomadica Solutions did. And we're here to help people that, the painters and the concrete workers and those type of folks that are branching out on their own that need a little bit of guidance. Like we're here for that. Coincidentally, like the majority of those people are artists. I can't say we set out to serve that community. It's just how it happened and now it's growing. So the majority of our clients are artists, specifically tattoo artists.
That's really cool. And are they typically, so I'm thinking out loud, they typically would be an S Corp, I would imagine, for that type of thing, or what? Yeah, give me a sense of what that looks. And do you do the individual and the S Corp then in that scenario?
So it does vary.
Yeah.
because different states have different qualifications and things that are needed in order to just be a tattoo artist. There are actually some states that require a license and CEUs to continue to hold that. So you get some artists that are very new, that are very green, but they have to have their experience in order to maintain their license. So there may not be ready yet for full S Corp status. So with that, we've got some LLCs, we've got some S Corps, we have shop owners, and then we have some folks that are like provide products and e-commerce sites for tattoo aftercare. And most artists also carry their own line where they sell their own logos and stuff. So they sell t-shirts and stickers and things like
Yep.
that. So, so yeah, it's a broad spectrum of LLCs, S Corps, even some, it sounds crazy to say, but even some of them are property managers because they own a building and then they rent that space out to other artists. And as long as they,
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah, as long as they maintain the proper contracts and the proper lease agreements, then yeah, they're making rental income. So it all varies.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. That's funny. I even like e-commerce. I mean, you kind of have all the now you got inventory. I'm just mentally thinking through like that's pretty much all the things, right? On top of normal payroll and bookkeeping issues, you got inventory issues, you got sales tax issues, you got property managers, depreciation. That's a broad spectrum. And how do you structure like one of the things I always love to ask people about is kind of getting into advisory services. Like, how do you feel like you're doing in terms of being able to proactively advise those folks with your current suite of services? Like, are you able to proactively get out in front and be like, hey, let's do planning? Do you do a quarterly? Do you do monthly? Like, how far have you been able to get on that front?
Hey, that part all depends on the client. Like it
Yeah.
really does. Unfortunately, like the tattoo industry, there's a common phrase and a common thing that they use in that world, and they all live the pirate life. So a lot of tattoo artists have been, they sell a big tattoo, make that money, and then they spend that money, and then come tax time, they have to do 10 tattoos to pay the taxes. So most of them are not incredibly proactive, but that world is absolutely shifting and it's changing because of the revenue that some of these artists are making and generating. And artists are now more willing to become substantial and legitimate business owners. So it is changing. So some of them absolutely are willing to get on board and they are taking the suggestions from me or people like me. But then there are some that are still rather stuck in their ways. And it's hard to get folks to understand that, yes, you have to pay taxes when they say, no, I don't. I haven't been paying taxes for 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting them on board with that is, it is challenging, but again, that world is absolutely shifting and it has a lot to do with how much the industry is growing and becoming more accepted in society.
Yep. Yep. Well, and it's common whether it's tattoo artists or kind of anybody else, right? The whole gig economy growing, I think, is has had a huge impact on accounting firms, actually. And we not talked about a ton, but yeah, I think you're going to see more and more of that, where you've got people doing consulting work, especially with AI automating certain things. I think you're going to see lots of people consulting for different companies, which I think will be a boom for accountants, but also a challenge at the same time. Is that so? What are the big challenges you see, like from a practice level? What are the challenges you're working on right now?
So I think, you hit some key points that things are changing and evolving, especially with gig work and people becoming self-employed. Like the days of somebody going and working a job for 30 years and then retiring with a pension,
Yeah.
we all know that those days are long gone. And then we went into the world of, well, maybe you work 4 or 5 jobs within your career, build a 401k that follows you wherever you go. Even those days are absolutely shifting. The younger generation is not, they're looking for work-life balance. And if they're not getting it here, then they'll go there. And they're willing to bounce around more so than any other generation out there. And then some of them are like, I don't want to deal with that at all. I'd rather just work for myself, and they become freelancers. So they need the advisory more than any other company ever before, right? So they need the advisory, they need the guidance, they need the tax support and the bookkeeping, but they also don't necessarily have the revenue generated to pay somebody the way companies used to be able to in the past. So the way that I see and the vision that I see is a lot more people need more consulting work. They need more tax strategists, but they're also not able to pay what folks used to get paid. So increased workload, but maybe not necessarily the same pay scale that it used to be. Um,
Yep.
and again, like I'm thinking of companies that are, have gross sales of less than, $500,000 a year. They need this service, they need that guidance in order to scale, but yeah, they can't necessarily afford to pay somebody, and they don't necessarily want to hire an in-house accountant either. So the challenge that we have is accommodating these people, because we know that they need it and we want to serve those people, but it also has to make sense. Like, something that I've always been told at most every accounting firm or every job I ever worked at is to not complicate a company's accounting processes so much that they can't handle it if you left. So
Yep.
in order to maintain that, it's like you're working with a gig worker who maybe they Uber or maybe they use Thumbtack or whatever that is. They need your help, but you have to make it affordable for them in order to keep them around. So I think that's probably the challenge, is learning how to simplify their processes that accommodate them, still serve them and what they need, but it still be profitable for me as well.
Yep. Yeah. Right. No, that's such a, yeah, what you said is just so, you could spend probably your whole career like trying to optimize that. Right. I definitely would echo that. You got to make it effective for the client, effective for you, which is easier said than done. What are the effective ways of doing that you found? Like what are the most important things you try to control, or expectations you try to set, whatever it might be, to keep a simple system that also where like you can advise them well, but also like get a good return on your time? Like kind of how have you put that together for your practice?
Right. So, right. The forever question, right? Like how do
Yeah, I mean, literally, like your whole career, basically, you're always reevaluating this, right? I am tiered
right.
pricing and all the things.
I'll say this: Nomadica Solutions has been a company that, we're in a day and age where everybody is trying to build their own value and everybody's trying to grow and scale. And, if you have to fire 10 low paying clients in order to get that one high paying client, and you want to adjust your prices because you know your worth and your value. And I get all of that and respect all of that. And I don't disagree with all of that. But I also know that there are a lot of people out there. There's a lot of families out there, a lot of companies that are, doing what they can to provide for their family. And if I'm out chasing the biggest clients, they all get left behind. So, we want to include them because we want everybody to be successful. In order to have a sustainable economy, can't everybody be huge earners? Can't everybody be, these big billionaire companies? Most communities are made up of the small business. So we all have to kind of help that and support that. So how do I do that effectively so that I can also feed my family and so can they? SOPs are everything, right? You get to know a client, you interview them, you see what their goals are, you see what their purposes are, and what their whys are. And you start coming through their process and how can I make this easier? How can I make this simpler? One, so I can collect the data that I need, right? So your bookkeeping is everything because I need that data to be able to strategize and to be able to help you create a plan. The bookkeeping is also essential in terms of tax and what that's going to look like for your return. And then all of that comes into, the consulting work. So creating an SOP that caters specifically to the client. We have some templates that are very broad. So when a client comes on, we have a basic idea of how we're going to handle their AP, AR if needed, but most tattoo artists don't have AR, but some of these other companies do. So how we are going to handle their AP, how we're going to handle their AR, what those pieces are going to look like. And then, so we have some standardized templates, and then we kind of mold those and polish those based on the specific client and how they operate. And then essentially, like, can I say purchase a particular software or implement some other products or things that will help me streamline my templates and my processes so that once those are constructed for the client and they get to me, how can I streamline my processes?
Yep.
And I think that's key is like, I could spend all day with a client that I have minimal billing for because I care about them and I want them to be successful. But if I can automate any of that, I think that's key. But for us, it's important for me to know that when my clients reach out to me and they contact me, that part's not automated. That they
Right.
have a human being, that they have somebody that knows them and cares about them. So my process was created with you in mind. I automate a lot of things that they'll never know or understand or connect with. But when it comes to them speaking to me or when it comes to their business and our interaction, that part is not automated.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's like a human touch to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I want to double click on the automation piece just because the I have got bookkeeping in my practice too, and we got rid of a lot of our bookkeeping clients because we couldn't really, well, I didn't feel like I could do both well, and so I picked the tax side of the fence. Do you do like accrual and inventory management? Like, how do you manage some of that stuff? Because it's funny, because I fired most of those people because similar to you, I want small businesses, but do it profitably. Um, Love the passion for like the kind of blue collar small business. I actually have a few of those, quite a few of those as well. And like our bookkeeping can be just even a few $100s a month, right? It's like, does not a huge cost, especially in the Bay Area. Um, but uh, but one thing that I had to do was like take a certain type of client. Like they have to connect your bank accounts. We don't do accrual basically. We do a couple of clients that have accrual accounting, but even that can be a massive time suck, right? It just like that could be an endless amount of work, especially when you get like, just to give you a small example, an e-commerce company that has 6 different platforms because everybody sells on Amazon and Stripe and, like all the different things, Shopify, whatever it might be. And we had to just be like, okay, hold on. Like in terms of SOPs, we're just like, we take this type of client, we serve this person well. So like, let's just get out of the way on some of these other folks. I'm curious how heavy handed you need to be on like the type of client and then also the processes with the client, right? Is that like, how do you approach those two items in terms of forcing, certain types, like putting boundaries on who you take and then putting boundaries on the processes they're able to use?
I can't say that there's going to be many that I would say no to or excommunicate, but
Yep.
there definitely comes some significant boundaries with those. So if I have a client that's going to have, there's inventory, they're accrual based because, like you said, they have these different areas of collecting revenue, and inventory is going from here to there, and we're recording sales and here and over there. If they have their own internal department, then yeah, I'll consider it from a consulting piece, or maybe you have the consulting piece already. Maybe you already have a CFO. You're just looking to outsource your AP or your payroll, or something of that nature. It really just depends. So we'll support in all kinds of different ways, but you're right, to absorb one client and cover all of those bases, like that would be difficult. Because again, our thing is to be able to support as many as we can, and to pick up a client like that becomes a major just time suck for, one specific client. And yeah, we could charge them through the nose, and most clients are willing to do that. But is that where our services are best utilized? And the answer is probably no.
Yeah, right.
So, again, it has to be, can we serve a client like that? Are we the ones that's going to provide them the best service that they need? And all that comes in the interview process, right?
Yeah.
And when they
Yeah,
say,
tell me. So you interview them before you onboard them. I actually love that you call it interviewing instead of onboarding. That's an interesting nuance there, which I like a lot. That switches the mindset a little bit.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because, in the first conversation doesn't mean that we're going to work together.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
they're going to interview me and I'm going to interview them. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, it's all about a show and tell and what it is that you guys need and what we can do and what we can provide there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's super important. I mean, it's funny because you started with like, hey, there's these small businesses and someone's got to serve them, and I'll take people that come in the door. But it's, it sounds to me like you're like, I will, but I'm also gonna feel you out first to make sure we're a good fit, right? And I think that's super important. It's always amazing to me, like the willingness to change or not for certain clients, right? Like, hey, some people come in and they're like, this is how I do it. I just want you to like pick up where the last guy left off and be cheaper than him, right? Obviously not a great client in that case, but then there's people that for whatever reason they like had a bad tax experience last year, or they like owed way more than they thought or something. They're like, hey, I got to get my act together. Like, can you help me come in here? And it's funny. I almost wish I had like a degree in psychology or something instead of accounting, because it's like, how do you get these people to do what they need to do? It's behavior change, right? Like you go into the small business, they want to just do what, they don't want to spend more than like the very minimum amount of time on accounting. They want to have the information they need to they want to minimize taxes and want to know how much they're going to owe, probably, right? Beyond that, they often run their business off their like cash balance in their actual account versus like looking at their QuickBooks files. At least in my experience. And so sometimes that really works against you because you're like, hey, I just need you to send me this one report. Like, why am I emailing you 4 times to like get this one report from you? Or you keep sending it to me in a terrible format. Um, but it sounds like you do a qualification process up front there and to make sure it's a good fit. Do you look for like people that are willing to change behavior, or people that have good processes already, or some combination thereof?
So at this point, I would say the biggest piece. So we've talked about, the interview process that we have and what we offer. And, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we'll offer whatever. We can support you in whatever way. But what it really comes down to for us is, can we connect and can we communicate? And if we cannot, then that's kind of the deal breaker for us.
Yep.
If you come in the door and I start hearing things like, if I hear that, our last tax accountant, they just stopped answering our phone calls and, whatever, we'll take that into consideration. But like, if you've been fired by 4 different accountants in the past 5 years, and I hear that, like, probably not going to work for us.
Yep.
And one of the biggest things about us and why we're able to serve a lot of pieces in the world that we do is we're not very standard. Like, we're kind of unorthodox. So if that bothers people, then I'm not going to be the one for you. If you want a polished firm, someone that you can walk into, their office and see, a more traditional style of firm, then we're not the ones. But if you're willing to hear some, vulgarity from time to time and some frustration, we're here for that. We're here to help you brainstorm. We're here for those conversations. If you want a crisp yes or no answer every time you ask a question, I'm not going to be the one. It's all about conversation and it's all about communication. Is this a good idea? No, but I need to do some research and we'll figure that out. And if that isn't for you, then I'm not the one for you. So, in terms of these clients and, which ones are they willing to change their process? Or do they have to be willing to change their process? Not necessarily, but if I can clearly tell you that the way you're measuring cost of goods is not sustainable for you, and I continuously tell you that, and you're not willing to take that suggestion, then probably not a good fit.
Yeah.
I don't need everybody to, bow down to what I have to say or my experience or expertise. Cause I'm not that arrogant, but you hired me for a reason and I'm not going to be a puppet on a string either. So I'm here to, I'm here to
Yeah.
provide a service to you. But you chose me for a reason. So those two pieces have to be considered. And so when it comes to working with folks, like, yeah, I just have to have somebody that I can, essentially get along with, that I don't have to combat with. Because I've left jobs like that where you work in an department, you've got a CEO that you answer to, and they want to challenge, they want to push you on everything that they say and every worksheet that you provide. And if that's the type of environment, I got to go, because that part is important to me for sure. That I don't have to like everybody, but I don't want to be frustrated every time I pull up somebody's QuickBooks and have to dig into it.
No, my rule is kind of like, if I look at my email, or ideally typically I have people go through Grasshopper or whatever, but I see your name on my phone and I have that feeling in my gut, like I don't want to answer, like we got to be done. It's just like that. That's the moment of truth for me, is I look at the name and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to even look at this. And then I'm like, you know what? Life is too short, man. I always joke with people. I'm like, the quality of your life is going to be like a reflection of the quality of your clients at the end of the day. And look, like, I could do a better job of communicating to them and helping them change and all that. It's not like completely on them.
Sure.
Times, like you're saying, where it's just like, hey man, this is a dysfunctional relationship. That's actually what I say to people now. If I'm firing them, I'm like, hey, this is not working. And we both know that, right? Like, it's okay. Like, we don't work well together. There's lots of different types of accountants. And I don't think I'm your type, because I just keep emailing you every single week for your documents and you keep not sending them to me. And like, that just doesn't work. I don't want to issue your financials in April for January. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't want to do that type of work. I don't think it's good work. And, if you care that little about it, then you should just go to like the lowest cost provider, go find someone else. Anyways, a million other things on that front. Now, are you guys working on any, it sounds like you think about SOPs quite a bit. Any automation stuff you're trying to do within the practice that, like, what are you most focused on that you think can actually have the upside in terms of improving your work-life balance or your efficiency?
So we picked up a couple of softwares, including Juno. That, and I don't know if it's good practice or not, but we've also picked up Tax Dome in the past year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You're making all the switches. I like it.
Yes. And a full disclosure, I picked up Tax Dome. I know this isn't a Tax Dome podcast, but Juno works a lot with Tax Dome, which is how I came across Juno. But I picked up Tax Dome just because of the portal, right? My tax side of my business was growing enough that I needed something more secure. It was more than people just, dropping some stuff off on my dining room table. Like, I needed to advance in that world. And when I picked it up, Tax Dome, I realized a lot of workflow systems that I was lacking. So now we're implementing that. And now that my bookkeeping side and the fractional side is picking up, now we're funneling that through Tax Dome as well. So having these workflow processes in place is absolutely changing things. So I'm becoming more organized. So I don't have a stack of papers that's high on my desk with 150 to-do lists and, all repeating the same thing over and over again, but I don't have Post-it notes everywhere. So automating my workflow system is huge. And, implementing my SOPs into my workflow is huge. And picking up Juno is, I mentioned that, we're working with a lot of self-employed freelancers, that kind of thing. So, being able to do a tax return for a reasonable cost is huge. And every business owner out there needs that, right? And picking up Juno allows me to do that, because then I don't have to manually enter all this data for every single tax return, right? Like, I can do 10 in an hour or 50 in an hour. Like, that changes things, and I can pass that savings on to these people so that, they can continue to do the work that they need to do, and they're not struggling or getting a bitter taste in their mouth about their tax preparer. Same thing. We just mentioned, like, we got people that show up in our email. When I see that name, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to deal with that right now. But they
Yeah.
do, when they see their accountant come in,
Oh,
they
I guarantee it.
bitter
Yeah,
taste,
that's right. We are both having the same bad relationship with one another, right?
That's right.
That's what I say
Right.
when I break up with a client. I'm like, hey, we both know this already. Every time we're emailing each other, it's like, oh my gosh, we're both cringing. I mean, it just is not a fit. Like
Right.
we don't need to force this thing. Sometimes it's just not the right time, or maybe like I don't know, maybe later in life or something, you'll be in a different place and we could work better
Yeah.
together. And I'm always like find something because I'll be like, hey, I know like I have a lot of like I have boundaries about what we can do and how we do it, and it's ultimately also to protect you. But the reality is like there's probably other bookkeepers you can find that are more flexible. Just do it the way you want to do it, and like go find that person. you know Everyone's got their style, and sometimes it's a fit and sometimes it's not. And sometimes that client, like honestly, some of my best tax clients came over after a really bad experience, and then they're just like, I'll do whatever you tell me. I'll be super compliant. I'll submit my stuff early. I never want to be on extension. I will go through the entire checklist. I'm terrified of the IRS. I never want to go through this again. And you're like, great, we will have a great relationship together.
Yeah.
But not all of them have had that experience yet. And in terms of tax home, it's funny. um yeah, I moved my practice from Carbon to Taxdome. I will say practice management, shifting that software is a big lift. It can be a lot of work to transition. It took us about a year probably to really get it like running well. And then it took us actually like we just are switching to Taxdome this year. But with Carbon, when we onboarded, it took us a year to get it working well. And then 2 years to get it like probably adding value for our team, I would say. You know what I mean? Like a year maybe to get like I don't know, to learn how to tread water, and then two to like add value. But the thing that makes that more important is downstream now as you get these automation tools, not just Juno, but any automation tools you might use. Now you can like automate more of the workflow. But if you don't have good data coming in up front, there's only so much you can do on the back end. Like someone the other day asked me, I was in Orlando for the IRS tax symposium or whatever the thing was. And someone was like, okay, do you take handwritten notes? And I'm like, well, we do. But why are you getting handwritten notes for people? I'm like, can I just double click on that for just a second? Because I like, she actually showed me one of the files, and I was like, okay. And I won't name names because I was like, this is a bigger firm than mine. I do a couple thousand returns, individual returns. We do like 500. But I was like, okay, I can pick this apart right now using a portal. To your point about like TaxDome and coming over for the portal, I'm like, you're not using a checklist. So they're just writing down random things. Like they wrote that they took money out of an HSA. They wrote that they made charitable contributions, but they didn't tell you which ones were over $250, right? They didn't tell you the name and address of the different places for non-cash. They didn't give you like on the HSA. I have found many times that what the IRS gets and what the client reports to you are different, right? Because sometimes like it's not in the same tax period or it's reported into a different tax period. And for either contributions or deductions. And I was like, so can I start with like, why are you need to get away from this? I'm like, are you using a checklist with these people? She's like, no, we're not. Most of our clients like aren't ready for that. Or like, and I'm like, no, it's not that they're not ready for it. You just got to make them do it. I told my
Right.
admin one year, I was like, this is the year we're doing it. Like tell clients that they're fired next year if they do not get in, like figure out how to upload documents. And COVID helped us with that a lot. I will say that was a tailwind for us in terms of getting people to use our organizers. But it it helps everything downstream. Like if you get bad data, someone said to me the other day, like imagine like you go to a lawyer and you got a lawsuit or something, and they don't even ask you more than like 5 questions, and then they're just like, all right, we're good to go. That would be insane. And they're like, it's equally as insane to do that with taxes, but we feel bad like asking people more questions. But at the same time, like to do good work, you have to have the right information. And it kind of all starts there from my perspective of just like, you got to get the client to give you good information, and the automated reminders, the checklist, like it saves you an insane amount of time really at the end of the day, but not just in collecting the documents in the back and forth, obviously with the clients that goes along with collection. But then also when you get into the return and you've done 20 minutes of work and you realize you're missing something, like it's just like over and over and over again, little paper cuts that blow up your processes.
Most definitely agreed.
I love it. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I know we're almost getting here at time, but I mean, one, it's really cool that because you have a more recent practice, you actually like kind of come in with a lot of best practices. It took me a lot of years because it's almost sometimes harder when you inherit. I bought a couple of small firms and pieced them together, and you inherit the client expectations of the prior firm, right? Which is like actually not easy. If I could go back, I would definitely think about that a little harder. But I mean, you got you're checking all the boxes there in terms of like automation and SOPs, and you've been a faster learner than I was probably as a practice owner. But and it sounds like you're pushing even further on automation as you go. Any other changes you expect from the practice, or like big ideas, or things like that you got coming up in the future, or things that get you excited?
What I'm really excited about is continuing to grow this fractional piece,
Yep.
and learning how to integrate that to where we're not just tax focused. I mean, I certainly want to be, but I don't know. Everybody's got their theories on how tax is going to go. And now that things are becoming automated and AI is involved, and what
Yep.
that will look like in the next 5 years or 10 years. So we're just trying to prepare for becoming a broader, company to service, all kinds of needs other than just tax. So, something I probably would definitely like to highlight here for us. My one client that we started this business with to help and to service, we were just doing his taxes, a little bit of bookkeeping here and there. And it was just him. And then he gave us a buddy. So we had two people for like 2 years and a couple of stragglers here and there, but nothing major. But I'm in Georgia and they were in Ohio. So essentially, like, we created all of this with the idea of them being there and us being here. And because of that concept, like, we were forced to do this level of automation and organization because I don't
Yep.
know you. I don't have the luxury of sitting down and having a face-to-face interview and getting to know you and your family and things like that. So we're forced to try to answer or ask all of the questions, right? And not just, did you have health insurance? And the answer being yes, but did you get it from the marketplace? Because if not, whatever. But if you did, then we need that, that 1095. Being able to, create those questions to ask all of that, we were forced to do that because I don't get to see your face when I ask the question. I don't get to see that hesitation or,
Yep.
Do you have any 1099s? And if there's a stutter there, then I
Right.
can keep digging, but I don't have that luxury. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just the very nature of how we started, like, we were forced to kind of do some of that. But it does rear its ugly head when there is a question we didn't think about until it comes back and really bites us or the client because we didn't have that forethought to start asking. But I think probably what's on the horizon for us is more interviews, even if it's digitally like this, to
Yep.
continue to engage with people and whatever. Especially with the younger generation, man. Like,
Yeah.
they are the younger folks, the Gen Z, and whoever they're going to call the people after that. They're in a world where they want to be connected with people, but only so far. Like, we want to see your social media because we want to get to know you, but I don't
Yeah.
actually want to, encounter you person to person all the time. So,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's funny how that works. I want to
yeah,
know you, but not personally.
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what all the marketing people are telling me. Like, that's how
Yeah.
you have to do this. Like, you have to create a
Yes,
somebody's.
my sister's a counselor, and here's one little thing she said that I thought was so interesting. I think it's probably completely true for tax people too. She's like, people just want to they want to even just watching like 2 minutes of a video of you, right? They can see if you seem like a good fit for them, like if you're personable and like what you like to talk about, and do you sound like you know what you're talking about, and so on and so forth. And I think that's 100% true for tax people. Just none of us are actually doing it, or at least very few of us.
Yeah.
I've been terrible at that. But you're exactly right. That's how people want to engage. It's not that they want to come in your office and chit chat with you for an hour, but they want to just have a sense of like, who are you? Are you a real person? Like, do you know what you're talking about? And in a short video, especially if you show some personality, right? You put it out there and you're like, hey, these are the kind of businesses I deal with, right? Here's some problems that I've dealt with. It's probably really helpful for clients. And honestly, maybe the way that most young people are going to start looking for accountants, or at least like a checkbox that they would check along the way if they're looking for an accountant. Because the other piece is like your other option is go to like, I don't know, I don't play this game at all anymore, but go to like Google listings and Yelp reviews and some of the Google reviews. And I just hate the online review process because you just get like one crazy person that's like, Adam is the devil. And you're like, what? We didn't even work together. We had one interview and like, I was nice to you. I didn't do anything,
Yeah.
and now you're like, I got to go get 5 more good reviews to bury this thing on the page.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gone down that rabbit hole, but I did for a while. And then I was like, I got to just stop this game. Like, this is stupid. I'm not going to pay Yelp to like surface my good reviews. But you're exactly right. You got to meet them where they are, basically. And that's probably going to be more and more the case as you go through time. And one quick thing on as we wrap, your point is really good when I say something very similar on like with AI's. We're building AI to do tax, and I probably spend more time than anybody looking at like how AI does tax returns, right? Or at least maybe there's a handful of people in the world that spend as much time on that as I do. Here's the thing, like AI, I like there's a great example here, which is software engineers. When you're doing something technical that has big downsides, right? For different reasons, software engineers, like you're going to crash an app, and tax returns, you're going to make a mistake and they're going to get a letter from the IRS. But both of those things are very bad. So high compliance or high risk environment. AI is really good. Like it's maybe 95, 97, 98, maybe 99 on certain things percent accurate, or you can think of scores at that level versus like, kind of a human test, but it's not 100. And so in those environments, like just with software engineers, they're using like a co-pilot basically, right? Like everyone now is using Cursor or Windsurf to write code. Like literally very few people are like, they laugh now about like anyone coding without that. They're like, why would you do that? That's insane. And I think the same thing is going to happen in the tax world. But here's the thing, like the software engineer is still there and they are driving this thing because the AI, if it's 95% accurate, you can still crash the app, right? And so it's like, but it may take honestly the rest of our lifetime for AI to get better than an accountant who's taking their time with the proper controls in place. Like maybe not every accountant, it'll be better than a lot of accountants actually very quickly, but if you're, double checking and doing good work and like that insight that you're talking about when you're talking with someone, they say, I got married, even on like their organizer, they say, I got married in January, and that they filled that out in February. An AI system might just change the filing status, but a human might be like, well, which January? Because you might, you know what I mean? It's like, hold on, like human context is going to be relevant for a really long time. And then also, one of the things you said that I just want to echo back, so much of the advice we give, you still have to drive the behavior change with the client. And like a robot AI, accountant I don't think will be as effective at being like, hey, listen, I have dealt with businesses like your business. This is going to help. Like I can save you like $8,000 next year, but you got to do these following 5 things, and that is going to be a human touch point, I think, for a really long time. The last thing I said to people is like, okay, if you're paying like 50 grand in taxes and you pay $1,000 for your tax return, that's like a 2% transaction fee. So that's less than your credit card. So let's not freak out about like the $1,000 tax return. Like at the end of the day, this is not a ridiculous amount to pay, especially given that I can often save you as much as you're paying me, depending on what you're doing. But I'm always like, if you got 2 W-2s, go use TurboTax. You know what I mean? Like that's not a good return for me either. There's nothing I can do for you. So it's not worth using a professional and paying them a lot of money because I don't know your life as well as you do. You can just go fill out the questionnaire in TurboTax if it's super simple. But if you're doing if you're running a business, like I can almost certainly save you as much as I'm charging you. But anyways, the long story back, to your point, what I wanted to echo there is like the human's gonna be here for a long time. Like as far as I can see, I think there's still a human in that loop. And honestly, I tell my team with Juno, I'm like, guys, if we do this really well, we're actually going to increase the complexity of the average tax return because AI is going to recommend all these different things. And then you'll be spending your time working with your clients to make sure, hey, remember that HSA thing that we talked about? Like, did you do it yet? And you're going to get better at like reminding them throughout the year what they're supposed to be doing, like dealing with the human component of that and the behavior change. The tax return itself is going to get much easier, much easier. Maybe like 90 or 95% easier. But the human component won't go away. It's like they answered some weird thing in the organizer. I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Or I know they want to do the HSA and the 401k this year. They want to do a better job of that. I better check in with them on Q4, in Q4 and AI might remind you to check in with them in Q4, by the way. And TaxDome just announced that yesterday, which is super cool, like estimated payment reminders. So AI is going to help you become a better accountant. It's not going to be the accountant for a little while, at least.
I love it because, in my opinion, humbly, because again, I try not to be incredibly arrogant, but I like to think I'm pretty good at what I do, but that doesn't mean I know everything. It certainly doesn't mean, I know every tax code or I know every, GAAP principle by memory or IFRS. Like I don't know every code. I certainly don't remember everything I have to do 2 Tuesdays from now. So
that's right.
That automation there for me so that I can, still work with my people and give them the best conversation that they need and deserve. It's huge, man. That's super cool to hear. And that's a great perspective. And I totally agree with it. So super cool, man.
Well, unless someone smarter than me builds a better accountant, but I don't think it's going to happen yet. So we'll survive another week or month or year, depending on what happens here. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Seriously, it's so great to hear the perspectives of what people are doing with their practices. I think there aren't enough people just talking about what's happening in the industry and sharing best practices. So appreciate you doing that. And I'm super excited to have you on with Juno. My door is always open, by the way, if you got feedback as you go through that product, particularly on Reviewer, we just launched it. So we got a lot of work to do on that, but could not be more excited about those, especially for smaller firms like you, where it's like, what keeps you up at night is a mistake you might have made or something you might have missed. Like as that thing gets better, it's going to be a safety net really for firm owners and for reviewers and for preparers at the end of the day. But always like, let me know if you got feedback. We get better every time somebody gives us feedback. So we really do appreciate that as a team, and you can email me or anybody on the team basically. So my door's open and I just appreciate you taking the time and we'll let you know when we get this thing out there.
Awesome, man. Hey, I appreciate it, Dave.